All right, Jessica, tell me about your quiz question and looking at the matrix.
Okay. So we took our 4-question quiz, RI 4.6, and after reviewing the matrix and what the students struggled on, I noticed that question 2 had a 70%, which isn't bad, but I want to focus on the ones that got it wrong. The question says, which statement best describes how the author's description of Bridalveil Falls is similar in the waterfalls of Yosemite National Park and my trip to Yosemite? So the students needed to be able to find what was the same in both
Passages.
both sources.
Yeah. Sources.
So and then I pulled a couple lows to look at, 2 mediums, and then 1 high.
Great, and I see that there were 3 sources, right?
Yes, so there's 3 sources, but they needed to be able to look at just those 2 and figure out what was the same in both.
Great.
So we were addressing RI 4.6, which was comparing firsthand, secondhand, and knowing how an author writes something differently if it's in a different way. So the question that I noticed was one of the biggest struggles was number 2. And that one was a struggle based off of using a double bubble. And it asked them to be able to tell what was the same in both passages.
Okay. And
so
I
we
see
were
there was
looking for a similarity.
70% on that. Okay. So what are all the steps students needed to be able to do the answer to this question correctly?
So in order to do it correctly, they needed to be able to create a double bubble, and know which samples they were creating the double bubble for, because in the quiz, it actually gave them 3 different samples, but they were only using 2 of the samples, sample 1 and sample 3. And then they also needed to be able to not just do the double bubble, but understand they were looking for what was the same in both and not just the same in one or the other.
So they needed to know they didn't need to look at sample 2, and they needed to synthesize the information, the similarities between 1 and 3. Okay. What misunderstandings are revealed? So what did you think students were doing wrong here?
So when I was noticing the ones that got it wrong, most of them were all going for the same answer, which was one of the vocab words that stood out. So they were going for, they saw steep here, and so when they saw steep in the answer, they automatically went towards that one and didn't think about that it didn't talk about that in sample 1. It only talked about it in sample 3.
Which was, that was C on the question?
Yeah, so in my exemplar here, we have, so C was one of the big ones that a lot of them went for. But A was the correct answer.
Okay. And what, if any, was the race breakdown? Or did you see any race breakdown?
No, so they didn't do a race response for this one because we've been trying really hard to get them to see that they can answer questions in different ways. So I was just like, if there's a thinking map you can use, then we use a thinking map instead of the race, just to help them have other options.
So in this case, it was
the
thinking map
Yep.
versus the race response.
Yep.
So in that case, what broke down on the thinking maps?
Okay, so the biggest thing that broke down in thinking maps, which you can see a big difference between my high, medium, and lows. My lows didn't give a lot of stuff for 1 on their double bubble. They just went with whatever they saw first. And then a big thing that we noticed is that they weren't doing something for each side. So if, for example, they chose sample 3 was a first hand, then I would want them to go to sample 1 and say, oh, this is a second hand, so that they see the difference. How are they different?
Right.
And like, this is one of my lows here. Yes, she has a lot of stuff, but then she almost gives too much, and I think it confused them when they were going back. So really getting them to hone in on what they need to be putting on their double bubble.
So what strategies did the students use or not use that will be helpful for your intervention or research?
So noticing, like, even looking on my high here, something that I want to incorporate probably into my double bubbles, she actually explicitly put, you know, what paragraph and what sentence she got it from. So that was a great strategy that my high student used that my medium and lows aren't. So that is something that I want to incorporate for them so they know where exactly they got their information from.
Great, and you'll add that into your exemplar too. Awesome. What did the mediums do that the low students did not?
The mediums did okay with the one-to-one. If they put something on one side, they were able to give me what it was like on the other side. So my mediums and highs did that really well. It was the lows that struggled with that.
Okay. And then what did the highs do that the mediums did not?
The highs just added even more, like this was in paragraph 1 or sentence 5, or they were able to be even more specific.
Which is what you were mentioning for adding to everyone and your exemplar.
Yes.
Awesome. And then your teacher exemplar, did your teacher exemplar do anything that the highs did not?
No, I actually did less in my exemplar than they did here. So, which is
Learn
awesome.
something from our kids.
Yes.
That's great. So, how will you adjust your lesson or expectations to move them to the next level?
I think just for me, especially when I teach a double bubble the next time, like if I have them do it, I will explicitly give strategies of using the double bubble, because sometimes I forget when, you know, being in 4th grade, I think that they know how to use them correctly when they can still have more strategies. So just really giving them a strategy of, okay, we put one thing here, let's go to the other one and put something. And we don't necessarily have to do all one side first and then go to the other one. You want to be going back and forth.
Any other strategies?
I think also using possibly like color coding. I can have them color for one, and then they color the same color over here so they know when it's happening.
And double bubbles don't always need to balance.
Yeah.
But I think a key is when you were saying the source,
Yes.
you want to make sure they're citing that evidence. Awesome. And so, tell me about your action plan. Because there were 70%, if it's 80%, we move on and adjust in intervention groups. With 70%, how are you going, what's your next course of action in terms of your research?
So for my reteach, and I noticed those students that were missing it, most of them were my 10 lowest that would be in my, one of my guided reading groups together. So I would try to do a reteach of it in my group or incorporate it into my novel or whatever it is that we're reading and have them do a double bubble with me. And so that way I'm getting to those students that may have been a little more confused about to accurately put one together.
Okay. So what's your student action plan with which students?
I think I'm pretty sure most of them are all in that group. So it's going to be those 10. I mean, I think there might even be some of my ELDs as well. And so I can even address it in an ELD group or my guided reading. And I will have them do it with me and take them step by step and use the color codes. And so I want them to be doing more double bubbles as a group.
Great, so you will list these students who need it.
Yeah, so I know for sure, like I have these friends here. Yeah, and these are all, like, every time I look at these names, I know specifically which groups these are in, so it's easy to do it as a small group.
And so, what's your teacher action plan?
For me, I want to go in to Newsela or ReadWorks and find an article that would be really conducive to a double bubble. So that way I'm allowing it to coincide and work together really well.
So you're saying before you integrate it into your guided reading, you want to do it with an isolated ReadWorks article?
I would, yeah,
into your small groups?
Yeah, that would be, I think, an easiest way to do it is to pull an article because,
at least have it once, and then it's something that I can think about in the future. Oh, I know this group struggled with it, so as we're reading, like, to be like, oh, okay, this can be a double bubble, so let's do it, and that can be, you know, weeks into the future and stuff like that.
That's
So,
nice. And with ReadWorks, you can search by standard, and they could pull up 2 articles that you could read
Yeah.
for the double bubble, and possibly even 3 with one that they don't need that source.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll moving into the planning time, and you'll look on ReadWorks for the articles
and then do my
forward the double bubble.
exemplar and do a double bubble.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessica.